Welcome back to Echo Ridge and another episode here in our Max Colonization series, where today I think we're going to land on our third planetoid, and it's going to be Civial. For one, it's only a couple tiles away, so that means we'll be able to get there quicker. For two, it looks like this will be one of the easier planetoids to colonize because it has the water, but we have a couple of things in our way, namely, we have to work on our colonizer rocket. We also have to wait for the Explorer to get back. We'll be turning it into a drilling rocket. Well, maybe multi-purpose, maybe drilling and dropping off supplies to different colonies. Not quite sure on this one yet. Starting off with the ESS colonizer though, we have some of its meat and potatoes in, namely 2 large liquid fuel tanks and a couple of small oxidizer tanks. Now this will give us a range of 20, as we can see if we go down to the rocket. And yes, I know we definitely don't need a range of 20, but I'd rather get this rocket set. That way we don't have to worry about it again in the future. I am trying to come up with a design on the inside of the rocket, but there's a few decisions we need to make from the rip. Are we going to be supplying oxygen through oxalite, or are we going to be supplying it using a large gas cargo canister? And the reason why that's an important question to figure out before you design the interior of your rocket is because if you're just pumping oxygen into the spacefarer module, well, then you don't have to worry about filtering it before it gets into the suits. And while the filters are no big deal, whether we're using a standard mechanical filter or one of the powerless varieties, they do take up more space. It also would require that you have a pump in here. Now, we would still have to have a pump to be able to get rid of carbon dioxide, but in that case, you could use the very small mini gas pump. But if you're trying to supply oxygen for 4 suits, well, we would probably need the regular gas pump. The problem using the large gas cargo canister, at least with this setup, is the fact that it only gives us 2 available slots, which means we'd have to use another rocket for the Trailblazer module to get the first dupe on the planetoid in order to build the rocket platform. And you may say, well, Echo, we don't need to use the large gas cargo canister. We could use the standard gas cargo canister. The problem with the standard is it could only hold 3.6 tons worth of oxygen. Well, we know that every duplicant requires 60 kilos worth of oxygen per cycle. That's 100 grams per second times 600 grams per second per cycle, which means the 3,600 kilos of the standard gas cargo canister would hold enough for 60 dupe cycles worth of oxygen. So if I have 2 duplicants, well, that's only enough oxygen for 30 cycles. In this case, I want 4 duplicants, which means we'd only have enough O2 for 15 cycles. Whereas the large gas cargo canister has a capacity of 11,000, and 11,000 kilos divided by the 60 kilos per cycle per dupe gives us 183 dupe cycles worth of oxygen, which divided by 4 duplicants means we have enough oxygen for over 45 cycles. In 45 cycles, we could land on another planetoid, do some work, and then just fly home to refill on air, at least until everything is up and running, in this case on Civial. But again, that's going to be full of trade-offs because that means we'll only have enough space for another height of 2. So we'd have to get rid of the battery module and put a battery inside the Spacefarer module, which I don't love that because that only introduces even more heat. Or we can get rid of the solar panel module, rely just on the petroleum engine and its 480 watts worth of power to charge said battery until we get to the other planetoid where we can then set up some wheels or another type of power supply, which I think is what we're going to do. After all, this small solar panel only gives us 60 watts worth of power. With the solar panel gone means we have enough room to be able to put in a Trailblazer module. We'll make that out of steel, of course. I wonder how long this graphical glitch is going to stay in the game. I don't know what causes it, but it's been around for years. If you know I'm doing something specific that the game does not like to cause these graphical glitches, please let me know in the comments below. Now that we're no longer on steam rockets, I can get rid of all this nonsense, and I will figure out a way to pump all of the O2 that we need into the rocket, which, if you haven't noticed, the large gas cargo canister does not have an input. The game forces you to use a gas rocket port loader. I will hook up a couple of those over here. This is a reason why it would be really nice if I could have both of the rocket platforms together. That way I wouldn't have to have, for instance, 2 gas port loaders and whatever unloaders we want in the future. Now, another thing to consider is right now, all of this O2 is very, very hot, 200 and something degrees. Remember, we said we didn't really care how cold this oxygen here was coming out for the simple reason our dupes weren't going to be breathing it. We're just turning it into oxalite. Now the duplicants are going to be breathing it. But this isn't a big deal because I have a nice debris chiller right here. Unfortunately, I would have to break in there to get access to it, which I don't see that we have another choice. So I think I'm just going to bulldoze right through the center here. And then as this oxygen comes in, we'll use some radiant nickel. That works out fine. We will send the oxygen around, and then it'll come back out on the other side, where since it'll be cool, I'll be able to send it off just like this. Ooh, how did this get destroyed? That's not right. Maybe I just forgot to finish building it? This gas pipe was made out of obsidian, and the rocket exhaust only comes out this way. Either way, I gotta move this trash line over, and then we'll send the oxygen up this way. At long last, the ESS Explorer has made it home. We're currently filling the tanks back up and making sure that we have another rover in here. The first step in today's mission is going to be dropping a rover off on Civial. As it stands, we have no idea what it looks like in here. But then I'd love to be able to go over here to this gilded asteroid field and start collecting the fullerene. I suppose this one's even closer. But one of the issues that we're going to be running into is the fact that the drill cone requires diamond. In fact, it requires a ton of diamond. Lucky for us, since we allowed the demo layer to hit, we have 91 tons. So I know theoretically it would be a lot of space missions before we'd ever run out of diamond, but you know that's not how I play this game. I like to make sure that whatever I'm using a resource, well, I have it to use forever. So I'm going to have to start looking for another source of diamond. And the standard way is by using diamond presses and pumping radiation into them. Well, I don't have a lot of radiation here. In fact, we're still thriving and surviving off of these Weezwards. We're almost done with cryofuel propulsion. And then after that, all we have left is this little bit of research. Unfortunately, though, I'm also going to need some interplanetary launchers eventually, which, much to my ire, require rad bolts. Why I can launch intercosmic blast shots all over the star map by using petroleum, but I can't launch payloads? I don't understand. But I guess we'll just chalk it up to one of those ONI mysteries that we have to deal with. But then again, over here on Recallan, I do have a lot of diamond still here. So in addition to the 91 tons that we already have, we could core out this entire area and use the rest of it as well. So maybe I'm not quite in much of a hurry to get more diamond. I'm getting ready to dig into this, and I think we're just going to YOLO. Some of this crude oil does have some zombie spores, but this is all polluted oxygen. As soon as the carbon dioxide hits it, it'll be more prone to spread zombie spores, but the dupes are in suits down here, and it's all oxygen and polluted oxygen up here, so I don't think the zombie spores will spread much. So here we go. I'm going to put a high priority to dig this tile out and then dig out the spore kid. And with all that oil coming in here, you can see all the zombie spores are quickly dying. Very nice, not too shabby. This spot down here is going to be a little bit more troublesome, but what I think I'm going to do is try to collect all this oil, push it over, and then drown it just like I did this one. I'll start tracking diamond over here on Recallan, and we'll see how much we're going to have available to be able to send back home. We have our initial oxygen pipes in here, and there is a small problem because when all the solid debris comes in here, the top row is pretty hot and then gets colder and colder. Well, the way we brought the oxygen in, it starts off by getting pretty cold and comes all the way down to about 28 degrees, but then starts rising as all the debris in these tiles starts rising as well. Now, it could be because I've opened all this up and we're not getting as much chill. But just in case, I think we're going to flip the way this goes in, with all of it doing a 50-50 split here. So the direction will be this way, and then I'm going to bridge it over where we're going to have a nice gas reservoir where we're going to hold all the oxygen that we're going to use on our space missions. I've been fancying the golden gas reservoir lately. There we go. I think that'll work out just fine. It also means I can grab all of this and start building in these rows again. I've been busy building the rocket interior, but this next pod has given us a Hassan that I think we could use. Eventually, Callie's going to be done doing all the digging we need over in Recallan, and we're going to want to replace them with a capable farming and ranching dupe. In this case, they do have the farming plus a little bit of tiding to move stuff around. Additionally, they have the +1 to science, which means they'll scale up a little bit faster. Welcome to Duplicant number 28 in the series, Colonel Sanders. Now, even though we're not quite there yet, I am going to put Colonel Sanders on the Recallan schedule. First, because I needed to move him off the default schedule anyways, but second, this way I don't forget that Colonel Sanders is going to be replacing Callie once they spend a bunch of cycles inside the gym, and Callie does a lot more digging. Both of the gas rocket port loaders are being filled with oxygen. Now, this one does not have a tank for O2. Remember, we're still using oxalite inside this Spacefarer module, but just in case we do end up using it in the future, I figured it wouldn't hurt to put the port loader. On this one, though, you can see that it is injecting it into the rocket, and that's because this rocket has the gas cargo canister, and we've selected oxygen on it. Now, it's going to take a long time to fill. 11 tons worth of oxygen at only 1 kilo per second tends to take a little while. I have a couple of exciting updates. First, our large gas cargo canister is almost full, and I think that's also the last time I'm going to call it the large gas cargo canister. It's a bit of a mouthful. I'm just going to go with our gas tank. But also, I've outfitted the Explorer with both the Trailblazer module and the Rovers module. I was able to do this because, well, this rocket has a battery anyways, although it is up to 36 degrees in here. I'm going to have to work on getting it cool. So we don't need a battery in here. And since I had the room, it frees up space here on the Colonizer rocket for me to add those solar panel modules back, which means when we get to a new planetoid, we'll at least have a little bit of power to get us up and going. Well, and also keep the Spacefarer module powered for all of its requirements inside. Speaking of which, here is our new rocket interior. It comes complete with a great hall and a barracks that sleeps 4. Speaking of which, we have 4 suits. I have not put the atmosuit checkpoint in because I don't want dupes taking their suits off while we're building this. Some other familiar things is the carbon dioxide collector with this mini gas pump. I have a gas element sensor that's set on oxygen, and with a NOT gate and a filter gate, it waits until there's anything but oxygen in this tile for at least 5 seconds, and then the mini gas pump will turn on, ejecting whatever it finds to the vacuum of space. Elsewhere on the ventilation overlay, could somebody please answer that phone? Okay, we're just going to disconnect it for now. It's obnoxious. We have our gas output fitting that is taking oxygen in from our gas tank on the rocket, and it makes sure that the cabin is pressurized and also keeps all of the suits nice and full. Something else you might have noticed is that we use a lot of these storage tiles, and that way, whenever I land, all the duplicants are going to try to fill these storage tiles with all the necessary materials that we need for our colonization efforts. The one I was a little bit worried about is the fact that the steel's, well, 132 degrees, but you'll notice it's not really transferring any thermals. I'm not sure why. Maybe the storage tile is just naturally insulating, despite its thermal conductivity saying otherwise. We also still have our water coming in. You'll notice that I've changed the rotation because our wall toilet is up here on this side. I did use a mesh tile in here instead of a storage tile. That way this tile here wouldn't get full of carbon dioxide. Not that it would have made that big of a difference. A couple of other updates I wanted to give you on the radiation. Remember, we are playing on normal difficulty, so radiation is not as big of a concern. But considering the duplicants are going to be eating and sleeping in here, I wanted to do the best we could. Now, I needed the space that we previously had all these plastic tiles up on the front, which helps block that incoming radiation. But in this case, we're using the fact that there's a double bulkhead here, and considering the tile of interest where the dupe actually is when they're sleeping is down here in the bottom left, which you will notice doesn't have as much radiation going through it. And if radiation does end up being an issue in the future, we can throw some basic rad pills inside the rocket, and then we won't have to worry about it at all. Now, I know some of you have already started screaming this, saying, Echo, there's only 2 mess tables. Well, yes, I know. And the reason why is because in the upcoming November 2025 Quality of Life update, Clay announced that mess tables are now going to be public, sort of like your latrines. In other words, any dupe can use them at any time. All I have to do is make sure that of the 4 dupes, I split their schedules in half. And it'll look just like this: Colonizer 1 and Colonizer 2. This will also help with the fact that the ladder beds are positioned this way, and that way there's less likely of a chance of a duplicant sitting way up here who ends up waking up this duplicant because they're climbing up their bed. You also notice the refrigerator in here that's stocked full with 100 kilos of pemmican. That gives us a total of 260,000 calories, which will be enough to feed each of these 4 duplicants for 65 cycles. But all in all, I think the inside of the colonizer is ready to go. Now, while we wait for the rest of the gas tank to fill up, I figure it's time to pick 4 duplicants that are going to go with us. I'm probably going to start them with a skill scrub. Not that the 18 is too bad to deal with, but the smaller the morale requirement, the less likely it is going to be that I run into problems with stress. Oh, Kiku, I think you're an automatic. You have a machinery of 31, an athletics of 34, strength of 10, and a construction of 10. Kiku just made the list, and that'll give us a mechatronics engineer. I'm going to need a digger. Let's go with old Josh Manchester. We're going to need a researching dupe because of the field research for us being able to analyze any vents and geysers. So we'll be taking along Fallout Stan. And now we need one other rock star. Maybe a rancher farmer to sort of get the colony started. I think that'd probably be a good idea, although I don't like the idea of leaving this colony short, but they do have 3. So I will take the one with the weakest husbandry because they're definitely not going to be ranching too many critters at these sparse locations. So we'll take Noosh 78. And just to make sure I don't forget which ones are which, I've already put them in their colonizer schedules, and I'm going to start skill scrubbing them now. Over here on Recolon, Callie has done a great job of digging this out so far, but you'll notice I've been collecting quite a bit of crude oil here, and that's because I plan on drowning this entire area because it is chock full with zombie spores. Now, no doubt, because there's carbon dioxide in here, some of the carbon dioxide may raise and enter this atmosphere here. The good thing, though, is this is a lot of oxygen and polluted oxygen where zombie spores sort of die. So without further ado, let's see if this works. Thank you, Mustang Cody. Oh, that's not a good tile. It now has 7 million germs, but this crude oil doesn't have any. So all I have to do is dig out this spore kid and then just destroy the tile by putting 1 block in its place, and whammo blammo, 7 million zombie spores should be gone. And look at that! Not much of a problem here. I mean, there's some zombie spores, but not a lot. I think we're going to do the same thing down here, except this wonderful slickster has already drained all the carbon dioxide out of here, so there isn't a lot of zombie spores. All I have to do is sort of flood this compartment, and there should be no more here. I think that's the last one. No, we have another one here, but again, no carbon dioxide, no zombie spores. And then we have this small cavity here. I'm not worried about it though, because as soon as this crude oil drops, it's going to flood this spore kit as well. Our gas tank is almost full, so it's about time to get this show on the road. I have skill scrubbed all of our colonizer dupes. I will give them some of the bare minimums, starting off with the tier 1 skills that they have an interest in, because those are basically free. And in Kiku's case, I'm also going to throw some improved construction. I don't need to do mechatronics engineering work yet. Who am I kidding? I'm going to need to. I'd really like to get to suit sustainability to slow that exosuit durability damage decay. Okay, 14's not so bad. Between the pemmican and the Great Hall, they'll be fine. I'll also make sure they get their hat, and then I'll do the same with the rest of the dupes. Josh Manchester, I don't think we're going to be going through much diamond or obsidian to start off with, so I'm just going to go with the super hard digging and the construction, and then right into suit sustainability. That'll give us a 10 morale requirement, not shabby. Old Noosh, we only need the ability to be able to ranch critters. We don't have to do it well. So critter ranching 1 is just fine. Plus we will do the suit sustainability. That gives them a very low morale requirement of 7. And then finally Fallout Stan. We just need the field research and then the suit sustainability. And either Fallout Stan or Noosh is going to end up being a plumber, because I think that's the only skill that we really need or could potentially need when starting up a colony. Remember, these dupes are not going to be the ones that stay behind. We're going to end up putting a mini pod there and printing out new dupes. With all that being complete, it's time to crew these rockets up. Now to start off with, one of the dupes that is going to live inside the colonizer rocket is going to be going to the planetoid in the Explorer rocket. For that purpose, we have changed its interior a little bit to be able to house 2 duplicants and feed 2 duplicants. And the reason being, as a reminder, is because the Trailblazer is going to be on this rocket. So let's change the crew here. Oh, Fallout Stan was already the pilot. That's not good. We're going to need to find a different pilot. 270. Guess what? Your time in the hopper. For the second duplicant, it is going to be Josh Manchester. Josh is going to be the one going down in the Trailblazer module. And the reason why we chose Josh is because they have a very high construction skill. And if they need to dig things out while they're down there, they're going to be the best at that as well. On to the colonizer. We need to put the rest of the duplicants. Noosh, who I seem to have forgotten to give them their hat. Fallout Stan, and Kiku. Then all we have to do is crew everybody up. And we're about to have 5 duplicants leave this colony. Everybody say bye. Now you might be wondering about our drill cone and the fact that there's no cargo module. Well, I'm making the trade-off of once the Explorer rocket drops off the Trailblazer module and the rover module, we're just going to have it return home. And once it does, I can switch out these modules and add the cargo bays. I am much too early in the colonization portion of this series to be forgetting something simple like the atmosuit checkpoint. So what we're going to do is uncrew this, let them build the atmosuit checkpoint, and then let them come in so that way their suits all fit in the dock. There we go. Now we can crew it up. Fallout Stan is in. No, Llama, I forgot to uncheck you. You need to go away. I suppose Llama was the last pilot. In fact, it makes more sense, since Llama is a dedicated pilot, to use Llama inside the Explorer rocket and not 270. Now, some of the things I have to be careful of is Josh Manchester has to come out of their suit for now, because I don't want them using all the oxygen in it. Right now, you can see it has 57.8 kilos in the oxygen tank. So we will unequip that suit. And then I will also make sure it's got a decent enough durability, which it does at 17%. Now, these suits are going to end up getting the wear and tear, and we'll end up repairing them, hence the reason why we brought the 50 of the feather fibers. Llama can also unequip their suit, and we're seen to be missing somebody. Here's Kiku. Here's Stan. Where's Noosh? Come on, Noosh. You're going to miss the flight. I did make sure to remember to click Deliver Suit. That way these docks were allowed to have suits. All we have to do now is change the destination. We'll send them right over here. And then we are ready to go. Cargo transfer complete. Oh, it's giving me this warning because of a bunch of oxygen sitting in the gas tank. Well, that's as designed, so we can acknowledge that. I will pause so I can begin the launch sequence. Yes, there's no drill cone cargo bay. I will acknowledge that. Begin that launch sequence. That way I can get just a beautiful thumbnail, even though we have the silly bug. Are they going to launch at the exact same time? No, the Explorer took off first. I don't know why it is. But one rocket always leaves first, even when you start them on pause. I'm sure I didn't forget anything, right? Not too big of a deal. I mean, we could just send them right back. It's only going to take them a half a cycle to get to orbit. Somebody's a faster pilot over in the colonizer because it made it there first. The Explorer is lagging just a little bit behind. With both rockets there, it is time to land rover to start off with. Question is where. I like this area here because it has more neutronium, which means the rocket as it lands won't be able to inject heat into too much. Whereas over here, we'd be dumping all that heat in. Of course, the ceiling is high enough, so I could actually build the rocket platform up here. Either way, I think this is the best spot, so we're going to land rover. Here you go, buddy. Let's start by doing some digging. I'm going to need some of these goodies, like the igneous rock. Can you deconstruct your own lander? Yes, you can. Then we know that the rocket platform is going to be 7 tiles. So I suppose I'll start building the ladders here. And then all I have to do is make sure there's at least a 35 tile clearance for the rocket. Oh yeah, this is going to be plenty good. Because all that rocket exhaust, if we end up putting the rocket platform here, will end up just being dumped into the vacuum of space. Well, that's never good. We've gotten visibility of the saltwater geyser. It is right here at the opening. Good news, we found the water. The bad news is, well, it's going to be erupting at 95C. So this is going to be one of our first targets to tame. I think this is probably close enough. So I will have rover finish building these last few ladders. And at the same time, let me throw Josh back in their suit. I did check Llama's suit. It doesn't have a better durability. So I'm going to take this one with Josh in the suit now. We will select them to get inside the Trailblazer module and then deploy it right here. I don't like that it snaps the camera away. Here comes Josh now. This is going to be great. We've got our 400 kilos worth of steel. Oh my goodness, they fixed the graphical bug of them not looking like they're in a suit. Let's deconstruct the lander. Where are you going, Josh? Oh, I suppose you can finish building those, but I will put them on 4, so you'd rather do this next. And with it being deconstructed, we can put the rocket platform in. Let me make sure once again this is the 35 height. Oh, barely, but it works. And I suppose while they're doing that, we can actually start digging in. Josh has got plenty of air left. There is some atmosphere in here. So once we dig and get some of that aluminum ore, I am going to take a metal airlock and seal this up, we'll say right here. And with the platform complete, we can land the colonizer. Wow, this went pretty smoothly. I know I've done it many times, but normally something goes wrong. Knock on wood. Absolutely brilliant. Oh, I realized what I forgot. I need to build the ladders all the way up to the Spacefarer module. So let's put in some more of those. And the great news is the people inside the Spacefarer module, well, they also have access to igneous rock since we brought 2 tons over. And while I'm here, so I don't forget, I am going to make sure I update Josh to be a part of this crew. And we have successfully landed on Civiol. Everybody is safe, everybody has enough food and oxygen for over 50 cycles. All that's really left is for me to send the Explorer home. We'll get those modules switched out, and then we're going to send them off to the Gilded Asteroid to collect some of that juicy fullerene. One thing I like about the gas tank is it has this meter here, so it'll be easy to be able to keep an eye on how much oxygen they have left. Something we're going to have to do every time we land this rocket on a new planetoid is connect the gas vent. We'll use some of the aluminum ore so I don't waste the valuable materials inside the rocket. Otherwise, all of this carbon dioxide would eventually suffocate our dupes in here. And right now, since that quality of life update has not been released, I'm going to have to keep an eye on a couple of the dupes because they're going to be eating wherever they want, because only Kiku and Josh have access to the mess tables. So you'll see, for instance, in the case of Fallout Stan, they don't have the morale benefit of the Great Hall. But that's going to be easy enough to work around until the quality of life update hits. Not to mention the fact that those duplicants are still getting the maximum aptitude buff from the Somnium synthesizer, which gives us the benefit of reducing stress by 25% per cycle. Another quick update, remember our thrust generation is now 0 from the petroleum engine, i.e. we're not getting any power from it. But the trip over here managed to fill this battery. That's where the solar panel modules will come into play. Now they don't provide a lot of power. Remember, it is still morning time, so the sun's still coming up. But Civiol itself, if we go look on the star map, is only a 30,000 lux planetoid, which is not enough to fully light up those solar panels. But by midday, it does generate enough power, around 38 watts per solar panel, to keep this battery generally charged. If we ever start to get a deficit, well, we can plug right into this battery just like you can with any other battery and start charging it via wheel or whatever else this planetoid has. So far, we've done a little bit of digging, and to show you what an amazing experience it is when you do have 4 duplicants colonizing a brand new planetoid, especially when you still have a rover that's functioning, a lot of the tasks just get done pretty quickly. But since I only saw 3, my guess, yes, we have our first worn atmosuit. So let's go ahead and put down our exosuit forge. I'm just going to power it by using a manual generator and a jumbo battery. Alternatively, I could build ladders all the way up to the battery. And just like I said that we can load the battery, well, we could also use this power as well. I don't think it's 100% necessary, and I'd rather keep, when we can, the network separate. Oh, look at this. The solar panels were able to completely charge the battery just to make sure that we always have enough power inside the Spacefarer module, because it quite literally represents the life support for those dupes. Now, in this case, it might not even be a bad idea, though, because The solar panels, even though they don't produce a lot, are still enough to completely charge the battery. And that's because we're not using too much power in here. The occasional phone call, the gas output fitting, the docks when the suits need charging, and then finally our carbon dioxide disposal, which doesn't run very often. Last 5 cycles, 29%. Probably more so right now just because Fallout Stan's been stuck inside the rocket. Back on our home planetoid, it's probably smart that I set up the colonizer rocket reminder, just so I don't forget about them. I'll say once every 3 cycles, let me peek in. That way I can explain to you what's going on with the ESS Explorer. You'll notice that we have the large cargo bay and the solid rocket port unloader, which means we are ready to go get some of that juicy fullerene. Now with the solid rocket port unloader, whenever we have everything loaded up in the cargo bay, we have a couple of options. One, I could take the rails and tie right into our existing system. Or I could just put a conveyor chute right here and have them drop everything off. For just the purposes of recording, I'm going to do this to start, just so I can be able to show you that we've got the fullerene. But after I get the initial fullerene that we will be able to use to make the supercoolant, I will then extend the rail so it's tied directly in, so we know all the materials are being automatically cooled. Pick our gilded asteroid as the destination, only 8 tiles away. And, oh, what's the warning now? Limited oxidizer? What's our range? 8 tiles? What's going on with my oxidizer? Let's uncrew that for now. We have plenty here. I suppose they just haven't loaded it yet. We do have the errand. Okay, I'll give it another cycle. Back over here on Civial, it is time to repair those Atmos suits. That way we can get to the business of strip mining this planetoid again. Oh, there is a crushed satellite down here. That could be a great source of radiation. Speaking of which, the planetoid's actually one of the larger of the planetoids that we're going to be colonizing. Additionally, I'm thinking it would be great to be able to tame the aluminum volcano, the gold volcano, and the copper volcano. We don't have everything we'd probably need for that, with us only bringing a ton of steel with us, but we can always make a quick return trip home, or it'd probably be smarter just to launch it over. 450 kilos, 450 kilos. Our range is now back to 20 tiles, so I will crew this up, and we'll send the rocket over to get that fullerene. Over on Civial, we're doing a great job of obliterating this planetoid, but we're going to have to start making some plans on how we're going to feed dupes and provide them oxygen. Obviously, it'll probably all wrap around salt water. Oh, speaking of which, there's one more ceremonial thing that we have to do. Put in our wonderful mini pod. I think I'm going to try to make sure that I always put the mini pods next to a point of interest that the planetoid has. In this case, we'll go right next to the table. But that's going to about do it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed us landing on yet another planetoid. And hey, maybe you even got to learn something too. Let me know if you have any recommendations or what you'd like to see us do over here on Civial. So until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.